All right, let's dive into one of the most dynamic periods in modern history, an absolute must-know for your GCSE revision, America from 1920 right up to 1973. Now, this entire half-century is really defined by one powerful central tension. At its heart, this whole era is about the pursuit of the American dream. You know, that powerful idea that anyone, no matter where they came from, could achieve prosperity and success if they just worked hard enough. But here's the question we have to keep asking. Whose dream are we really talking about? And that right there brings us to the most crucial point for your exam. This isn't just one story, it's two, running side by side the entire time. For every single moment of incredible opportunity, you'll find a story of profound, deep-seated inequality. And understanding this conflict, well, that's the key to unlocking this entire period.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the boom and the division of the 20s. Then we'll get into the Great Depression and the New Deal. And after that, the era of prosperity and protest. And finally, we'll pull it all together with the big picture takeaways you'll need for your revision.
First up, the Roaring 20s. I mean, what a decade. It was a period of unbelievable economic growth that completely changed the face of America. But as you'll see, just beneath that glittering surface, there were some deep social frictions tearing the country apart. So what was fueling all this? For your exam, you absolutely have to know these keywords. We're talking mass production, pioneered by guys like Henry Ford, which suddenly made things like cars affordable for ordinary people. Then you had this explosion of advertising creating demand, and people started using hire purchase, what we'd call credit today, to buy all the latest gadgets. And all of this was supercharged by Republican policies that favored big business, and a stock market that just kept going up and up. And all this economic change created this vibrant, exciting new culture. The Jazz Age was born. Going to the cinema became this huge national obsession, and for some women, things were really starting to change. The flapper became this powerful symbol of the new modern woman. You know, someone who is challenging traditional roles and embracing all these new social freedoms. It all sounds pretty fantastic, doesn't it? A whole nation just racing into the future. But this is exactly where our central theme comes roaring back into focus. Was this American dream actually available to everyone? Well, the answer is a very clear no, not even close. This slide really shows you the dark underbelly of the decade. Prohibition, the ban on alcohol, it backfired spectacularly, fueling a massive rise in organized crime. Racial tensions just exploded with the return of the Ku Klux Klan, and there was this wave of hostility towards immigrants, driven by the Red Scare, this widespread fear of communism, which led to infamous events like the Sacco and Vanzetti case. It was a deeply, deeply divided society. And just as quickly as the boom arrived, it completely vanished. The roaring party of the 20s came to a sudden, devastating end. So next, let's look at the Great Depression and President Roosevelt's ambitious response to it, the New Deal.
Okay, think of this timeline as your essential roadmap through the crisis. It all kicks off with the Wall Street crash in 1929. The president at the time, Hoover, his response just didn't work, which made him incredibly unpopular and led to the landslide election of Franklin D. Roosevelt, or FDR as everyone called him, in 1932. FDR's big answer was the New Deal, but as you can see at the end there, it's actually World War II that really brings the Depression to a close.
So what was the New Deal? Well, in short, it was Roosevelt's plan for massive government intervention to fight the Depression. It wasn't just one policy. It was a whole collection of programs. You might have heard of the famous alphabet agencies, all designed to provide relief, recovery, and reform. Now, for exam questions, you've got to have a balanced view of this. On the one hand, the New Deal had some clear successes. It gave jobs and relief to millions of people, and it totally saved the banking system from collapse. But on the other hand, it had major limitations. The Supreme Court actually blocked some of its key laws, and it was getting attacked from all sides, by Republicans who thought it went way too far and by radicals who thought it didn't go nearly far enough. And this is such a crucial point to remember. For all its efforts, the New Deal never actually ended the Great Depression. The thing that did, it was the massive economic mobilization for World War II. With factories running 24/7 and basically everyone having a job, that's what finally pulled America out of the crisis.
All right, let's jump into our final historical section, post-war America. And surprise, surprise, this period is, yet again, all about massive contradictions. On one side, you've got this unprecedented prosperity, and on the other, a fierce, growing, and powerful struggle for social justice and civil rights.
So, the 1950s.
For a lot of white middle-class families, it felt like the American dream had finally arrived. Consumerism absolutely exploded, fueled by new tech like television. Rock and roll came along and defined a whole new youth culture. But, once again, there was a dark side. The political paranoia of McCarthyism, basically a witch hunt for communists, created this intense climate of fear.
At the very same time, the fight against racial inequality was intensifying. And for your exams, it is so important to understand the different approaches here. You have Martin Luther King Jr., who championed nonviolent protest with the goal of an integrated society. And then you have figures like Malcolm X, representing the Black Power movement, who argued for Black separatism and self-defense. Now, all the sacrifice and struggle of the movement led to some truly landmark victories. The sustained, peaceful protests of the 50s and early 60s led to two of the most important laws in American history. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed segregation in public places, and the Act of 1968, which went after discrimination in housing.
And the fight for equality didn't just stop with race. The 1960s also saw the rise of a powerful feminist movement. Groups like the National Organization for Women, or NOW, campaigned hard for things like equal pay and an equal rights amendment. This period all leads up to the landmark 1973 Supreme Court decision, Roe v. Wade, which legalized abortion across the entire country.
Okay, we have covered a huge amount of ground. So let's pull all of this together with a final summary that really frames the key takeaways you're going to need for your exam.
This table right here, this is the perfect revision tool. It tracks our central theme right across the entire period. So look at the 1920s. The opportunity of consumerism and flappers was happening right alongside the inequality of prohibition and the KKK. Then, in the 30s and 40s, the New Deal created opportunity, but mass unemployment and segregation were still the reality for millions. And finally, in the post-war era, you had the opportunity of prosperity set against the fight against racial and gender discrimination. See? It always comes back to that core tension.
So let's end with a final thought to take away with you. This constant battle between the promise of the American dream and the reality of inequality, it didn't just stop in 1973. How do you think that fundamental struggle from America's past continues to define its politics, its society, and its identity even today?